Hello everyone. Today I'm going to go over officers, and in particular I'm going to go over the director officers. In other videos I will go over the strategy, drill master, and warfare officers, but for today we're going to focus on these guys. So a high level overview of what I'm going to cover is I'm just going to quickly go over the director officer section to show the different officers, and then I'm going to explain how those director officers are used for development and how they're used for war. And we'll go into officer skills, for example, to compare how you can go about deciding which skills you want to equip to your director officers, and then discussion around the breakthrough skills. All right, so let's go first into the officer section, and you'll see the very first one is directors. You'll have, as usual, the purple, blue, and green officers. You ignore the green because they are just not good at all. You can maybe, if you're starting out the game at the very beginning, just use what you have, but mainly you're going to just focus on the purple and blue officers. The purple ones are obviously the best. Medici is good for gathering, as his skill is about advanced gathering. So you can see right here, mine boosts it by like 10-something%. And Doc Gray boosts your research, and Medici boosts your construction speed. And the blue officers, you're really only going to use Ginger, Hacker. Yeah, Ginger and Hacker, honestly, are the only ones you're going to use. You're not going to use Jesse, as I'll quickly explain when I go over equipping officer skills. And yeah, like I mentioned, these ones you only use at the very beginning if you haven't gotten any other officers yet. But yeah, all right, so I'm going to cover development right now. In terms of deciding whether to boost your gathering speed or your resource production, this will depend on how many resource buildings you have in your city and what levels they are at. For my city, it is at a very high level. I have maxed out mineral mines and maxed out steel mills, and then I'm working on maxing out my oil refinery and farms. So mine are pretty high now, such the case that it's actually better for me to increase my resource production. And I'll show you how you can just easily determine which one's better. So the first thing you do is you go into city info, and really you should be always focusing on your steel or mineral production, because those are the resources that are hard to get. So what you would do is you would go into your officers, and I keep all of mine at level 1, so that way when I unequip one of the skills, it doesn't cost me any of these officer skill books, because what happens is if you unequip them, then you lose the first level, which is 100 officer skill points. But if you just unequip a level 1 skill, it doesn't cost you anything. So I'm going to re-equip it just to kind of go on how you go about deciding whether you want to focus on production, which is what I have, versus like a skill such as steel gathering or gather minerals, etc. All right, let's re-equip again. Which one did I have at processing? Okay, so how I would determine how much boost I'm getting. So I would go into city info, and then really you should just only focus on the steel and mineral, even though the processing actually helps all the resource types. You don't really care about that. You really want to focus on steel or mineral. I'm just going to choose steel as an example. So I would do 11061.9, then minus whatever that value becomes when I remove it. All right, so you see it became 10,511.1. So basically I'm getting a 550.8 steel units per hour increase when I equip that. Now let's compare this to what it would happen if I were to put it on steel. So I get a boost because it's part of our alliance property. So I can check both of them. For example, this is 8149. And if I go to a regular one, that is 7408. All right, let's see how much increase the steel gather will give. So if I click learn, I have steel gather equipped to one of my officers now. I go here, you can see 8387 minus 8149. That's a 238 boost versus check, so 740, 7624 minus 7408. That was a 216 units of steel per hour boost. But you can see both of those values, and even if I went to elite mineral mine, it's not going to compare to like 550.8. So for me, based on the level of my buildings and the number of buildings I have for steel, it's way better for me to even increase it with the generic processing officer skill rather than increasing my gather speed. And you can see if I was a steel expert, which is plus 10.96, it's even a bigger difference. So that's how you would go about deciding whether you want to increase gather speed or increase production speed. I think at the, when your city level is lower, the gathering speed has a bigger effect. And then when your city level gets higher and you build more of your resource buildings and increase them to higher levels, that's eventually at some point is going to shift towards the resource production. And there's also the consideration that if you're just not going to be in the game as much to always gather things, then maybe you just choose resource production either way, because that only requires you coming in to your city and shaking your phone to gather all the resources. Oh, I already gathered them. But yeah, that's much less effort than sending out your fleets to gather. It's less effort. And the last thing to show is like there is some officer skills related to gathering that are called tax rate and load. So that just allows you to send out more fleet at a time, and tax rate just reduces the tax rate you pay if you were to like gather at another alliance property. Like I think right here is an example. For example, this one charges 18.5%, so then that tax rate would reduce it. I think it's just better to focus on either, the gather steel or the steel expert, or the things that either increase your gather speed or resource production. Those are the ones I focus on. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, you might be thinking, well, Jesse, he's his skill is to increase gather speed. So why wouldn't we appoint him over another purple officer? Well, I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so I appoint Jesse, and I'm going to appoint Medici because this is my officer that I don't use as much. And the reason is because he's at a lower star level than these other ones. And he's also a level 1, so I can compare level 1 to level 1. Let's just equip the gather steel right now. Let's equip gather steel to Medici. All right, so Jesse is going to improve it by 1.9 plus 1.425, which is only 3.325%. While Medici, even though his base is construction speed, his gather steel alone is higher than the combined rate of Jesse, 5.115. That's almost 2% greater than what Jesse has to offer. Well, he's at a higher star too, but I did the calculation back when they were like similar stars, and it's actually you'll find that the purple officer still provides a bigger increase even if it doesn't have a gathering speed. And this is why I say Jesse is not really, you don't really use him unless you don't have the other purple officers. We can quickly go over the research and construction speed boosts. How this works is anytime you're going to build a building, or you want to upgrade a building, or you want to do some research, you will appoint the officers that are meant to increase construction speed or research speed. So if I wanted to upgrade one of my buildings, I would just appoint F Medici and Ginger, because those are the two ones that boost construction speed. So I would do that, and then my construction queues are filled up right now, but I would click upgrade, Once you clicked upgrade and it's launched, then you can switch back to your default officers, because this only is needed at the time that you click upgrade the building. After that, you don't have to hold it there. And similarly, if you wanted to do some research, you appoint Doc Gray, you appoint Hacker, you do, both my research queues are filled up, but you would just do the research. Once you click the research and it's fired off, then you can go back to switching to your default officers. That's all you have to know about the building and research boosts. All right, that went over the development side of things. Now I am going to go over the war side of things. So for the war side, you only focus on the purple ones because they're the breakthrough skills that have war-related effects. The first one is the EMP bomb, which throws 3 EMP bombs at the enemy when attacking commanders. Damage is equal to the number of your surviving troops times 68. That's huge. So anything that has damage is always a very important stat to take note of, because damage is one of the most important stats in the game. And yeah, so 68 damage for how many surviving troops you have, that's huge. And then the second thing is like, you have a 35% chance of making the target misfire for 2 seconds. A lot of times, most formations have one main attack unit. For example, 70% of their fleet might be cannons, or if they're mid-range fighters, 70% might be rocket launchers or stormtroopers. The point is, like, a lot of formations are heavily skewed on one unit. Imagine making that unit misfire. It's almost as if they just skipped an attack. That's pretty huge. And you have 35% chance of doing that if you're at level 18. I don't know, it doesn't, for whatever reason, it doesn't tell you the first level, but when you first activate the skill, you'll know what it actually does. But as the number increases up all the way up to level 18, this is the max stats you can get. And here's they even provide a video of what it looks like. You'll see these little blue beams. They go boom. So yeah, very, very, very good skill. I haven't bought any Medici packs because you can just get so many of them for free in the game. Trust me, even in the uranium mines, I noticed it makes a huge difference. All right, Doc Gray, he also has a pretty good skill, 31% chance of launching a power strike, dealing 1.5 times damage. That's like saying your damage increases by 50%. That's, to put it in perspective, I'm just going to go to my Zeus, who's a 5-star breakthrough at level 3, level 34. He gives a plus 19.5% damage. That's a 5-star Zeus at level 34 or level 3 breakthrough. And that only gives 19.5% damage. So if I'm just putting that in perspective, that's almost like 50 divided, that's like over 2.5 times Zeus. So that's like adding 2.5 Zeuses, level 5-star Zeuses to your troops for that attack. So that's really good if the 31% chance lands. Very good skill. And finally, we have Medici, who has a defensive skill, reduces damage to troops attacking your city by 18%. And I guess we should also keep this in mind. This is like the max level 18, because I haven't activated it yet. When you first activate it, it'll be much lower. But yes, reducing damage by 18%, like I was showing, that's like adding a Zeus to, or Alexander, 5-star Alexandria. When you're getting attacked by your city. So it's a very good skill. I would say in terms of offense, obviously you want to appoint Doc Gray and Medici. In terms of defense, in terms of offense, you want the L Medici and Doc Gray. In terms of defense, you want F Medici, and then your choice of L Medici or Doc Gray. And I don't have either skill, and this really would require testing to see which one you like more. This one's like the one where you want predictability. This will fire all the time as long as you live however many seconds, I think 10 seconds. If you live 10 seconds, it's going to fire off no matter what. While this one, if it's truly a 31% chance, if it's actually not just like every 1 out of 3 attacks is happening, but actually a 31% chance. There's a chance that it could hit every time. There's a chance it could hit and never hit. So this has a lot more volatility. So yeah, it's like risk and reward, stability versus high risk, high reward is how I kind of look at it. And you can probably test these out during non-loss events like Iron Blood or Frenzy. That's how I would go with testing about it. But yeah, either one probably is fine. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the director officers. If you have any other questions, if I maybe missed pointing out something, please let me know in the comments below.